whether or not their president is a crook. Well, I'm not a crook.
To lower the surface temperature of the burn by pouring on water.
Some images are more than just photographs. They are windows into history's most dramatic and unforgettable moments. From political scandals that shook the White House to shocking tragedies that changed lives forever, these rare photos reveal the hidden stories behind the headlines. Join us as we look at the 25 rare 1970s photos with shocking backstories. A haunting photograph from May 4, 1970, shows a young woman kneeling beside the body of a fallen student. Her hands are in the air, her face frozen in shock. Just moments earlier, the Ohio National Guard had opened fire on unarmed protesters at Kent State University.
May 4th, 1970, when members of the Ohio National Guard fired into a crowd of anti-war protesters at Kent State University.
Students had gathered to speak out against the Vietnam War, angered by President Nixon's decision to send troops into Cambodia.
The United States proves itself to be unworthy to lead the forces of freedom in this critical period in world history.
Tensions had been rising for days, with clashes between protesters and law enforcement. Without warning, the guardsmen turned and fired into the crowd. 4 students were killed, and 9 others were wounded. The country erupted in outrage. College campuses across America shut down as students protested. The event became a turning point, forever changing the way the public viewed government actions during the war. A girl runs down a dirt road, her arms outstretched, her body covered in burns. The pain on her face is unbearable. This is Phan Thi Kim Phuc, just 9 years old, moments after a napalm attack in 1972. South Vietnamese forces, believing enemy troops were nearby, had bombed her village. The fire burned through her clothes and seared her skin. A photographer, Nick Oot, captured this moment before rushing her to a hospital.
I remember one of the soldiers gave me some water to drink, and then because I cried out too hot, he tried to help me.
The image appeared in newspapers around the world. Many were horrified by what they saw. Kim Phuc survived, but she suffered pain for years. She later moved to Canada, dedicating her life to helping children affected by war. The photo remains one of the most powerful images ever taken, a painful reminder of war's impact on the innocent. What secret tapes exposed the biggest political scandal in the history of the United States? A packed Senate hearing room, flashing cameras. At the center, a man named John Dean spoke.
The Watergate matter was an inevitable outgrowth of a climate of excessive concern over the political impact of demonstrators, excessive concern over leaks.
The year was 1973, and America was watching the Watergate hearings unfold. A break-in at the Democratic National Committee headquarters had been traced back to President Nixon's administration. What started as a small crime turned into one of the biggest political scandals in history. Dean, a former White House lawyer, delivered shocking testimony. He claimed Nixon knew about the cover-up, calling it a cancer on the presidency. Then came another bombshell. Nixon had secretly recorded conversations in the Oval Office. The tapes would prove his guilt.
I shouldn't have even installed them because Johnson's system was there. I had it taken out, and I shouldn't have ever put them in the first place.
But if you had it to do all over again, you'd burn them.
These hearings captivated the nation, showing the power of truth when faced with corruption at the highest level. It's August 8, 1974. President Richard Nixon announced his resignation. The Watergate scandal had made it impossible for him to stay in office. For months, evidence piled up. The tapes proved he had lied. Congress was preparing to impeach him. With no way out, Nixon made history as the first United States president to step down. The next morning, he walked to a waiting helicopter. Before boarding, he turned to the cameras, gave his signature double peace sign, and left.
When an embattled Richard Nixon became the first president to resign the office as the misdeeds of Watergate unraveled.
The country was in shock. Gerald Ford became president and later pardoned Nixon, sparking further debate.
Throughout our nation's history, we have had the great good fortune of having in place the right person at the right time.
The moment remains a symbol of the limits of power and the consequences of political scandal. What led to the desperate rooftop evacuations that marked the end of a war? A helicopter hovers above a rooftop. Desperate people cling to the skids, trying to escape. Below, chaos unfolded as thousands rushed to flee. This was April 30th, 1975, the fall of Saigon. North Vietnamese forces had finally taken the city, marking the end of the Vietnam War. With the South Vietnamese government collapsing, the last helicopters of the United States scrambled to evacuate Americans and their allies. Many were left behind.
As evening approached, Ambassador Martin emerged to join the others in making the flight to an American aircraft carrier some 40 miles offshore.
Tanks rolled through the streets, and a new era began. For those who couldn't escape, life changed overnight. Thousands fled on boats in the coming months, risking their lives for freedom. The image of the rooftop evacuation remains one of the most powerful symbols of desperation and the end of an era. Fireworks explode over the Statue of Liberty. Crowds cheer, waving flags. It's July 4th, 1976, and America is celebrating 200 years of independence. After years of political turmoil, including the Vietnam War and Watergate, this moment of unity was rare. The biggest celebration took place in New York Harbor, where a fleet of historic tall ships sailed in a breathtaking display.
200 years of liberty celebrated in a glorious birthday party, the greatest convocative of sailing ships in 25 centuries.
President Gerald Ford led the festivities, calling it a time for renewal. Across the country, people gathered for parades, concerts, and fireworks. Despite recent hardships, the nation came together in celebration. The bicentennial remains one of the largest patriotic events in American history, a reminder of resilience and the enduring spirit of the country. What made this simple swimsuit photo a record-breaking sensation? A young woman sits on a blanket, golden hair cascading over her shoulders. She wears a red swimsuit and a radiant smile. This is Farrah Fawcett in 1976.
That poster was 75 and Charlie's Angels was 76.
Do we have that poster, Dana? We just bring everybody back. I just like to... There it is. Those are the days.
Her poster became an instant sensation, selling millions of copies. It was the image of the decade, plastered on bedroom walls across the country. Fawcett wasn't yet a household name when the photo was taken. She styled herself, choosing the red swimsuit to hide a childhood scar. Shortly after, she starred in Charlie's Angels, becoming a cultural icon.
Hello? It's Charlie, Angel. Time to go to work.
Okay.
Even decades later, this image remains one of the most famous posters ever sold, forever linked to the 1970s. In a small garage in Cupertino, California, two young men work on something revolutionary. The year is 1976, and Steve Jobs and Steve Wozniak have just built the Apple I. A photo shows them beaming, holding their creation. They had no idea that this tiny project would change the world.
Basically, our computer was all on one PC board. Just had to stuff all the parts in and put it over a wave soldering machine, and it was completely done.
Jobs sold his Volkswagen van to fund the company. Wozniak, a brilliant engineer, created the first prototype by hand. Apple Computer was born.
I always thought of myself as an engineer. In later life, after we started Apple, I looked at it and saw that I did the same things that an artist trying to make a piece of music so perfect.
The company grew quickly, introducing personal computers to everyday people. The simple garage where it all began has become legendary. Today, Apple is one of the most influential technological companies in the world, but it all started with two friends and a dream. What turned a citywide power failure into a night of chaos and crime? A city skyline is in darkness. Streets are eerily quiet except for the sound of breaking glass and distant sirens.
It was just after 9:30 p.m. when the streetwalkers in Times Square were suddenly doused in darkness. when thousands of passengers on graffiti-scarred trains became stuck.
This is New York City on July 13th, 1977. The night the lights went out.
July 13th, 1977 at 8:37 p.m., a lightning strike hit a power station in Westchester County.
A massive blackout had plunged the city into darkness. In some neighborhoods, people helped one another. In others, chaos erupted. Looters smashed storefronts. Fires burned across the boroughs.
It was a dark time, not just because the power was out. Fires were intentionally set, people were looting, and there was lots of violence.
Police struggled to control the situation as thousands took advantage of the darkness. By morning, over 1,600 stores had been robbed, and hundreds of arrests were made. The blackout revealed the city's deep struggles, high crime rates, poverty, and tension.
Citizens subjected to violence, vandalism, theft, and discomfort. The blackout has threatened our safety and has seriously impacted our economy.
It was a night that showed both the best and worst of New York. A man in a suit and tie waves to a cheering crowd. His face is filled with joy as he marches through the Castro district of San Francisco. It's November 8, 1977, and Harvey Milk had just been elected to the San Francisco Board of Supervisors.
What I'm going to do is call upon the gay community to come out now. Keep the education going. Keep talking one-to-one. Talk to your relatives, your friends, your family.
This moment was historic. He was the first openly gay man elected to public office in California. Milk's victory was a turning point for LGBTQ+ rights. His campaign focused on equality, affordable housing, and protecting workers.
I will fight to represent my constituents. I will fight to represent the city and county of San Francisco. I will fight to give those people who had once walked away hope.
He faced opposition from conservative groups, but his charisma and determination won over voters. Tragically, just a year later, Milk was assassinated by former supervisor Dan White.
This is the body of Supervisor Harvey Milk as it was taken from City Hall. Witnesses say after killing the mayor, White ran down the hall and fired 3 shots at Milk, killing him.
His legacy, however, lives on, inspiring generations to fight for equal rights. What led over 900 people to drink poison in a remote jungle commune? An aerial photo shows hundreds of bodies lying face down in a jungle clearing. It is November 18, 1978, and what was supposed to be a utopian community ended in tragedy.
Yesterday in California, the first of dozens of caskets were put beneath the surface of the earth. They are the remains of some of those who died at the Jonestown Commune in Guyana.
Over 900 people, followers of the People's Temple, were dead in Jonestown, Guyana. They had been forced to drink cyanide-laced punch on the orders of their leader, Jim Jones. Jones had moved his followers from California to Guyana, promising them an escape from racism and oppression. But life in Jonestown became a nightmare, filled with brutal punishments and isolation. When United States Congressman Leo Ryan visited to investigate, he and others were murdered. Knowing his control was slipping, Jones ordered the mass suicide. It remains one of the darkest moments in history. A nuclear power plant looms in the background as emergency crews scramble to contain a crisis. It's March 28, 1979, and the 3 Mile Island plant in Pennsylvania had just suffered the worst nuclear accident in the history of the United States.
The accident occurred here at the 3 Mile Island nuclear power plant a dozen miles south of Harrisburg. At about 4 o'clock this morning, 2 water pumps that help cool reactor number 2 shut down.
A partial meltdown in one of the reactors had caused panic, with fears of a radioactive disaster. A series of mechanical failures and human errors led to the incident. While the containment structure prevented a full-scale meltdown, radiation was released into the environment.
The radiation levels at the site boundary are really only a tenth of the general emergency level where we normally get concerned.
The accident shook public confidence in nuclear energy. Protests erupted, and new safety regulations were put in place. The plant eventually shut down, but the event remains a warning about the risks of nuclear power. What started as a baseball promotion, but ended up as a riot against disco. A massive explosion rocks the baseball field. Thousands of vinyl records are blown to pieces, and the crowd erupts in cheers. It's July 12, 1979, at Comiskey Park in Chicago. What started as a radio stunt had turned into
where the fire is burning. The fans are now streaming off the field in great numbers, and I doubt if very few will be left to confront the police.
Disco Demolition Night was officially out of control. Radio disc jockey Steve Dahl, a vocal critic of disco music, organized the event. Fans could enter the game for 98 cents if they brought a disco record to destroy. But after the explosion, rowdy fans stormed the field, setting fires and tearing up the turf.
The rest was unplanned. Fans stormed out onto the field in the thousands. Disco records were hurled like frisbees. Bonfires were set. Bottles were thrown.
The damage was so severe that the White Sox had to forfeit the second game of the doubleheader. The event is now seen as both the symbolic end of the disco era and a reflection of deeper cultural tensions. A tennis court inside the Houston Astrodome is packed with fans. On one side stands Billie Jean King, determined and focused. Across from her, Bobby Riggs, a former men's champion, grins confidently.
What a scene it is, the Houston Astrodome, where up till now they've played almost every sport in the world except tennis. And tonight, it's tennis.
It's September 20th, 1973, and the world was watching the most famous tennis match ever played. The Battle of the Sexes. Riggs had boasted that no female player could beat him. King took the challenge seriously, knowing this was bigger than sports. She played aggressively, defeating Riggs in straight sets. The win sent a powerful message about gender equality in athletics. The event was watched by 90 million people worldwide. King's victory wasn't just about tennis, it was about proving that women deserved equal respect in competition.
The famed tennis player of the past. Jack was to have been part of our team, but it seems that Billie Jean King didn't want him to be part of our announcing team.
What made a young boy from Indiana the future king of pop? A group of young boys performs on stage, dressed in bright matching outfits. At the center, a small boy with a big voice steals the show.
And on Wednesday, they're going to be doing their first nightclub engagement ever, headlining at the Grand Hotel in Las Vegas for 2 weeks. It's a great kick to have them here. Would you welcome the Jackson 5?
It's 1970, and the Jackson 5 were making their debut on the Ed Sullivan Show. Their first hit, I Want You Back, was already climbing the charts. Michael Jackson, just 11 years old, mesmerized audiences with his voice and energy.
Yes, well, it's pretty sunny out here. I like it a little bit better.
Do you dig it?
Yeah, it's cold in Indiana.
Is it mighty chilly back there? Let me scoot down and talk to the rest of the guys for a second.
The group's Motown sound, catchy songs, and synchronized dance moves made them instant stars. Their next 3 singles all hit #1. The Jackson 5 quickly became a household name, setting the stage for Michael's future solo career.
This represents 1 million records sold. They actually have sold 2 million, and they'll get a platinum record in addition to the gold one. Ladies and gentlemen, please greet for their first visit, the Jackson 5.
This moment was the beginning of a musical legacy that would last for decades. Massive crowds fill the streets, carrying banners and chanting. It's April 22nd, 1970, and the first Earth Day was underway. In cities across the country, people gathered to protest pollution, oil spills, and environmental destruction.
Only time will tell if these demonstrations accomplished anything. But let's summarize the points that were brought home today to a lot of people who have missed the point so far.
The movement was led by Senator Gaylord Nelson, who wanted to make environmental issues impossible to ignore. More than 20 million people took part, making it one of the largest demonstrations in the history of the United States. The event sparked real change. By the end of the year, the government created the Environmental Protection Agency. Laws to protect air and water soon followed.
Most participants in Earth Day were white. Although some Negroes did take part, Negro leadership was conspicuously absent.
What started as a single protest grows into a worldwide movement. reminding people of their responsibility to the planet. A long line stretches outside a nightclub in Manhattan. People dressed in glamorous outfits wait anxiously, hoping to get inside. This is April 26, 1977, the grand opening of Studio 54. The disco club quickly became the hottest spot in New York City, attracting celebrities, models, and musicians. Inside, the scene was wild. Glittering lights, outrageous outfits, and a dance floor packed with famous faces.
And still at Studio 54, people crowd the doors, hoping to get in. But first, they have to do something even harder than finding a place to park here.
Mick Jagger, Andy Warhol, and Diana Ross were regular guests. The club's exclusivity only added to its allure. Studio 54 represented the peak of the disco era, but its run didn't last long. By 1980, the owners were arrested for tax fraud, bringing an end to its legendary status. What storm paralyzed entire cities and left thousands stranded in the snow? A car is barely visible under a thick blanket of snow. The streets are empty, and the city is silent.
West Michigan was buried under the storm of the century, and for those who lived through the blizzard of '78, the memories have lasted a lifetime. Storm Team 8 meteorologist Blake Harms relives the storm.
This is February 6, 1978, the start of the worst blizzard to hit the northeastern United States. Over 2 days, hurricane-force winds and record snowfall shut down entire cities. Boston received over 2 feet of snow, while Rhode Island got nearly 3. Thousands of people were stranded on highways and forced to abandon their cars. The National Guard was called in to rescue those trapped in the storm. The damage was in the millions, and over 100 people lost their lives.
The snow came on Monday, February 6, 1978. And when the skies cleared, the city, the state, lay helpless.
This storm remains one of the worst in the history of the United States, remembered for its destruction and the incredible effort to recover. A group of masked men stormed the United States Embassy in Tehran. Hostages are forced outside with their hands tied. It was November 4, 1979, and the Iran hostage crisis had begun. 52 Americans were taken and held captive, marking the start of a 4-day international standoff. International. The crisis began when the United States allowed Iran's deposed leader, the Shah, to enter the country for medical treatment. Iranian revolutionaries saw this as an insult. The embassy attack was their response.
The special report that we planned to bring you tonight was about domestic politics, the battle among the Democrats. But we think the crisis in Iran is more urgent right now than the campaign here at home.
For more than a year, families of the hostages waited anxiously as negotiations dragged on. The hostages were finally freed on January 20th, 1981. The same day, Ronald Reagan was sworn in as president. A crowd gathers outside Graceland, candles in hand, tears streaming down their faces. It's August 16th, 1977, and Elvis Presley, the king of rock and roll.
Her father was in the Air Force, and actually they only got over there about 2 months before I left. I was seeing her, and she was at the airport when I left.
Died at just 42 years old. Fans were devastated. Elvis was found unresponsive in his bathroom, reportedly suffering from heart failure.
Elvis Presley died today. He was 42. Apparently it was a heart attack. He was found at his home in Memphis, not breathing.
Years of unhealthy habits and prescription drug use had taken a toll. His sudden death shocked the world. Radio stations played his music non-stop as fans paid tribute. Even today, Graceland remains a place of remembrance, with thousands visiting each year to honor his legacy.
In 15 years, it's hard to comprehend that happening. Holding to all the countries all over the world via satellite. It's very difficult to comprehend.
His influence on music and pop culture continues to be felt around the world. A sea of women marches down Pennsylvania Avenue, holding signs demanding equal rights. It was the 1970s, and the fight for the Equal Rights Amendment, ERA, was in full swing.
Letters like mad. They're talking to their legislators at home. They're going to be going up to Tallahassee and speaking to their legislators there. And we've just made a great concerted effort. We feel
The amendment aimed to guarantee legal equality regardless of gender. Congress passed the ERA in 1972, but it needed 38 states to ratify it. Opposition quickly grew, led by conservative activist Phyllis Schlafly, who argued it would harm traditional family roles. Despite years of protests and rallies, the amendment fell short by just 3 states. Though it never becomes law, the movement fuels progress in women's rights, paving the way for future generations. How did a single theme park become the most magical place on Earth? Families walk down Main Street, United States of America, wide-eyed with excitement. Cinderella's castle looms ahead, shining in the Florida sun. It's October 1st, 1971, and Walt Disney World had just opened its doors.
Walt Disney World is a tribute to the philosophy and the life of Walter Elias Disney.
Walt Disney had dreamed of building a larger, more immersive park than Disneyland, but he passed away before its completion. His brother, Roy Disney, made sure the project was finished. On opening day, 10,000 visitors explored the Magic Kingdom.
The real heartbeat of this company was, is, and will always be the film business, because from the film business comes the ideas that then...
Over the years, the park grew into a massive resort with multiple theme parks and hotels. Today, Walt Disney World is one of the most visited places on Earth, bringing joy to millions of people each year. The waters of New York Harbor are packed with towering sailing ships from around the world. Crowds line the shores, waving American flags as the sun reflects off the masts of the majestic vessels. It's July 4th, 1976, and the United States was celebrating its 200th birthday with the bicentennial Tall Ships Parade, one of the most spectacular events in American history. The parade was part of Operation Sail, a grand naval event featuring over 50 tall ships and modern warships from different nations. President Gerald Ford watched from the United States ship Wainwright as the fleet moved through the harbor. The event symbolizes unity and friendship after years of political turmoil. Even today, the parade remains one of the most unforgettable celebrations of American independence. How did one parking ticket bring down a notorious serial killer? A man walks calmly between police officers, a slight smirk on his face. This is David Berkowitz, arrested on August 10, 1977. For over a year, he had terrorized New York City as the Son of Sam killer. He left cryptic notes, taunting police while randomly shooting strangers with a .44 caliber revolver. His capture came down to a simple parking ticket. A car near the last crime scene was traced back to Berkowitz.
Jane, the man's name is David Berkowitz. He is an unmarried 24-year-old postal worker. He's a veteran of Korean service with the United States Army. When he was arrested late last night in his apartment.
When police searched his vehicle, they found a gun, ammunition, and letters referencing the killings. He confessed immediately, claiming he was commanded by a demon speaking through a neighbor's dog. He was sentenced to life in prison, where he remains to this day. What nearly doomed America's first space station just seconds after liftoff? A massive Saturn V rocket roars to life, flames and smoke billowing as it lifts off from Kennedy Space Center. The date is May 14, 1973, and Skylab, the United States' first space station, was heading into orbit. This moment marked a major shift for the National Aeronautics and Space Administration, NASA, moving from lunar exploration to long-term space missions.
6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. All engine running.
However, just 63 seconds into the flight, disaster struck. A protective shield ripped off, damaging one of Skylab's solar panels. Without repairs, the station won't survive. NASA quickly launched 3 missions, where astronauts conducted risky spacewalks to fix the damage.
Be careful. I see it. Okay, I am ready to maneuver when you guys are.
Despite its rough start, Skylab hosted groundbreaking research on space living, paving the way for future space stations like the International Space Station. It remains a milestone in American spaceflight history.